Hello and welcome everyone to our sacred blasphemy for the girls, the goths, and the gays. My name is Jasmine, and I have some wonderful hosts here on my channel. But we are going to be reading from The Women Who Run with the Wolves. Okay, 10 out of 10 would recommend. And we have a lovely folk tale for you tonight, and I'm going to read this folk tale, and my guests are going to comment on it, tell you their thoughts on it. They're going to give you their perspective about what they feel like individually and intuitively this folktale means. But without any further ado, I would like to have my guests introduce themselves. Samuel?
Hi, my name's Samuel. My magical history, I've been practicing witchcraft for 8 years now, consistently practicing for 8 years. But as most witches, I was interested in witchcraft since an extremely young age. I'm a devotee of the goddess Morrigan. Love her. I work with my ancestors extremely closely, so those are my good Judies. I love my ancestors. I'm a tarot reader, a professional tarot reader. I'm not a professional witch yet. However, it's on the horizon. Yeah. And I don't know if I mentioned I'm 22 years old and I'm a senior in college. Girl, I have the worst memory of anybody I could ever know. My short term is like non-existent. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Crafton?
Hey guys, it's Sydney. I am a eclectic witch. I teach a couple of classes surrounded in the Norse Pantheon. I'm also within the Solar Court Coven. You can literally find me on social media at Sydney.Glenn on Instagram or Sydney Beautiful Martyr Glenn on Facebook, or Craft and Magic as my Facebook page, as well as my YouTube. And I'll be putting up a video very soon about working with Freya and how you guys can work with Freya during the month of February.
Period. Jen?
Hi, I don't know how to introduce myself ever, so I'm Jen the Taxidermy Witch. My second name, or my alias, changes all the time. It's about to morph again to Fräulein Jen, the Taxidermy Witch, but right now it's Baby Firefly. We're changing that, and my channel is based on blood magic, bones, work with Lilith, herbs, animation, mannequin puppets, mostly left-hand path at this point. And that's where we're going.
Love it.
It's been balanced so far, but I've been having a lot of calling to try and do more intuitive left-hand work, which sometimes I feel might be a little bit iffy, but I'm taking a quiet time from my channel at the moment and doing all my reading. So we'll see where that goes.
Very cool.
Okay.
Love a good puppet. Love a good doll. Oh my gosh. Horrible at sewing, but I love a good puppet doll, okay?
You love some of my dolls. You can see one in the background right here. They're all over the place. I live in a little museum.
I love it.
So let's get right into the good work tonight, witches. So we are going to be reading from the book. And for those of you just now tuning in, this is the book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. This is actually my grandmother's copy, and I did a little bit of bibliomancy to get the chapter that we're going to read tonight. So the great thing about Women Who Run with the Wolves is that this book is based off of the divine feminine within folk tales. So pretty much all of the folk tales will have some sort of divine feminine archetype within a folk tale. And this is a folk tale, not mythology. So this is more of a cultural story. not stories about gods, but I think that we can probably pull the gods into these stories if we look deep enough. So today, per the bibliomancy, we have the story of the red shoes. Are y'all ready?
Ready, Freddy.
Okay, let me get into the good work, kids. Okay. The red shoes. Once there was a poor, motherless child. And make sure you guys are taking notes because I want to hear what you guys think of the story. Okay.
Can do.
So once there was a poor, motherless child who had no shoes, but the child saved cloth scraps wherever she found them. And over time, she sewed herself a pair of red shoes. They were crude, but she loved them. They made her feel rich, even though her days were spent gathering food in the thorny woods until far past dark. But one day, she trudged down the road in her rags and her red shoes, and a gilded carriage pulled up beside her. Inside was an old woman who told her she was going to take her home and treat her as her own little daughter. So to the wealthy old woman's house they went, and the child's hair was cleaned and combed. She was given pure white undergarments and a fine wool dress and white stockings and shiny black shoes. Okay. When the child asked after her old clothes, and especially asked for her red shoes back, the old woman said the clothes were so filthy and the shoes were so ridiculous that she had thrown them into the fire and they were burnt to ashes. And that's on period. The book doesn't say that. I'm just putting it. The child was very sad, for even all the riches surrounding her, the humble red shoes made by her own hand and given her, this gave her the greatest happiness. Now she was made to sit still at the time, to walk without skipping, and she was always told to not speak unless spoken to. But a secret fire began to burn in her heart and in her black shoes. Okay. And she continued to yearn for her old red shoes more than anything. As the child was old enough to be confirmed on the day of innocence, the old woman took her to an old crippled shoemaker to have a special pair of shoes made for the occasion of her blood moon. Okay, the blood moon.
Oh.
In the shoemaker's case, there stood a pair of red shoes made of the finest leather that were finer than fine. They practically glowed. So even though red shoes were scandalous for the church, okay, the child who chose only with her hungry heart, she still picked the red scandalous shoes.
Of course.
The old lady's eyesight was so poor that she could not see the colors of the shoes. And because she was very wealthy, she had the money for them and paid for them handsomely.
You sugar mama.
The old shoemaker winked at the child and wrapped the shoes up for her abruptly. The next day, the church members were agog over the shoes on the child's feet. The red shoes, they shone like burnished apples. like hearts, like red washed plums, like bright red wine on the child's foot. Everyone stared, even the icons and the saints on the wall, even the statues stared disapprovingly at her shoes. But she loved her shoes all the more, even though God himself disapproved. Okay?
Of her little shoes.
Apparently, the God in this book does not like her shoes. I don't know. We're going to get into the story.
He is not like a Louboutin girl.
So when the pontiff intoned, the choir hummed, and the organ pumped, the child thought nothing more than of her beautiful red shoes. Even while the sermon went on, she thought of her red shoes. When God spoke to her, all she could think of was her shining red shoes. Okay? By the end of the day, the old woman had been informed about her daughter's red shoes. Never, never, ever, ever wear those red shoes again, the old woman threatened the child. Right. But next Sunday, the child couldn't help but choose the red shoes over those stained black shoes. And the old woman walked with her daughter to church as usual, not knowing that her daughter was wearing these red shoes. Okay. At the door to the church was an old soldier with his arm in a sling. He wore a little jacket and had a little red beard.
Ooh.
He bowed and asked permission to brush the dust off the child's red shoes. The child put out her foot and he tapped the soles of her shoes with a little wig a jig jig song that made the soles of her feet itch with pain. The red-bearded man told the child, remember to stay for the dance. He smiled, winked at her, and whispered in her ear. Okay.
Kind of sexual.
That's not what he said.
Again, everyone looked at the girl's red shoes in church. But she so loved her bright red crimson, bright like raspberries, bright like the pomegranates of the underworld, that she could hardly think of anything else, hardly hear the service of God, the sermon of the pastor. She was so busy turning her feet, looking at her red shoes, and admiring the color that she forgot to sing in the hymnals.
Oh.
How dare she?
Shrugged.
As she and the old woman who adopted her, take note of that, okay? As they left the church, the injured soldier with the bright red beard called out, "What beautiful dancing shoes you have." His words made the little girl take a few little twirls right there and then. But once her feet had begun to move, the shoes would not let her stop. The little girl with the red shoes danced through and through. She danced through the flower beds. And she danced around the corner of the church until it seems as though she had lost complete control of herself, and the shoes were making her move all on their own. She did not gravitate towards the church, but the shoes led her astray. She waltzed herself through the fields across the way. Let me take a step back. The old woman's coachman jumped up from his bench, ran after the little girl with the red shoes, picked her up and carried her back to the carriage, though her feet stayed kicking and dancing. But the girl's feet in the red shoes stayed dancing in the air as though they were still on the ground. The girl with the red shoes, she danced and spoke in tongues and sang the names of those unsung. Okay.
Love a good invocation.
You
The
know.
old, the old woman and the coachman tugged and pulled, trying to pry these infernal red shoes off. It was such a sight to behold. All the hats of the church were askew, her kicking legs, but at last the child's feet were calmed. Back home, the old woman slammed the red shoes down on a shelf and warned the girl to never touch these shoes again. But the girl could not help from looking up at them and longing to wear the shoes again. To her, they were the most beautiful thing on the face of the earth. Not long after, as fate would have it, the old woman became bedridden, and as soon as her doctors left, the girl crept into her room, where the old woman kept the infernal shoes.
Oh, okay, infernal.
Gotta turn the page. She glanced up at the crimson shoes that were so high on the shelf. Her glance became a gaze, and her gaze became a powerful desire. So much that the girl took the shoes from the shelf, and she quickly put them on as the old woman took her last breath. The scandal.
Okay.
Can you say the last line again, or the last two lines again?
Her glance became a gaze, and her gaze became a powerful desire. So much so that the little girl took the shoes from the shelf and fastened them on.
Okay.
She felt that putting the shoes on, it wouldn't do any harm. But as soon as they touched her heels and toes, she was overcome with the urge to dance.
Oh.
And so out the door she danced, down the steps, first in the gavete, then in the cavarde, and then in the big daring waltz, turns in rapid succession. The girl was in her glory, and she realized she was no longer a little girl, but a grown woman.
Mm-hmm.
She did not realize that she was in trouble until she wanted to dance to the left.
Oh.
And her shoes insisted on dancing to the right.
Oh.
When she wanted to dance round and round, the shoes insisted on dancing straight ahead. These crimson red shoes that she sought after all of her childhood have led her down a path that she is uncomfortable and unfamiliar with. And the shoes danced this woman rather than her dancing the shoes. They danced her right down the road, through muddy fields, and into the dark and gloomy forest. There against a tree, the old soldier with the red beard, his arm in a sling, and dressed in his little red jacket. Oh my, he said, what beautiful dancing shoes. The woman was terrified as she tried to pull the shoes off her feet. And as much she tugged, the shoes stayed fastened on her heels. She hopped on one foot and then the other, trying to take the shoes off. But her one foot on the ground kept dancing even more so, and her other foot in her hand still kept dancing. And so her feet danced and her feet danced, and they danced and danced, as did the woman, over the highest hills and through the valleys, in the rain and in the snow, and in the sunlight. The woman continued to dance. Sunrise and sunset, her feet still danced. She danced in the darkest night and through sunrise. It was a terrible dancing, and there was no rest for the woman with the red shoes. She danced into a churchyard, and there met her a spirit of dread who would not allow her to enter. The spirit pronounced these words over her: "You shall dance in your red shoes until you become a wraith like a banshee." Okay. We're getting into the witchery, folks. I feel like we've been getting into the witchery with this story.
It's
Yeah.
been Dark Mother this whole time.
Right. I know from the start.
Okay. So the spirit of the churchyard said, "You shall dance in your red shoes until you become a wraith like a banshee,
Oh.
like a ghost, until your skin hangs from your bones. You wretch, you shall dance door to door through all of the villages and strike each door 3 times. And when people peer out, they will see you, they will fear you,
As they
and your fate for themselves will be of dancing red shoes. You will strike fear in the hearts, and you will make them dance for eternity in suffering." The girl begged for mercy, but before she could plead further, her red shoes carried her away in infernal flames.
Oh.
Over the briars she danced, through the streams and over the hedge groves, and on and on and on and on. Dancing and still dancing till she came to her old home, and there were mourners. The old woman who had taken her in, her adopted mother, had died and had been dead for quite some time when she returned.
Mm.
Okay. Yet even so, she danced on.
Oh.
She kept dancing over her dead mother's grave,
Oh.
on top of her corpse and on top of her dirt, laughing through the graveyard. She danced. In abject exhaustion and horror, she danced into a forest where she lived. She danced into the forest where lived the town's executioner. And the axe on his wall began to tremble as soon as it sensed the red shoes coming near. "Please," she begged the executioner as she danced by his door, "please cut me free from this horrid fate and these red shoes." But the executioner cut through the straps of the red shoes with his axe. But her red shoes stayed on her feet, separated from her body.
Oh.
So she cried out to him that her life was worth nothing and to end her life now. So he cut her head off. And the red shoes that still bore her feet in them, they kept on dancing.
Oh.
They kept on dancing and they kept on dancing through the forest and over the hill and until they were out of sight.
Oh.
And now the girl was dead with her head cut off and her feet removed.
Oh.
She must now find her own way in the other world. Maybe she'll be a servant to others, or maybe she will cease to exist. But her red shoes continue on, and maybe someone else will wear these red shoes.
Wow.
Yes, that was amazing.
We knew it was going to take a turn, but the way the turn was set up.
What do we think of this story, you guys?
Amazing.
Well,
I
I'm
think
getting that book.
it's totally a tale of initiation, 100%. 100%. See, I wasn't getting Dark Mother vibes. I kept really trying to like apply because I was like, what were we talking about before? Coincides with this. I think a little bit. Because obviously the soldier with the red beard is the devil. 100%. You cannot tell me 10 ways otherwise.
So let me say this. And Samuel, I don't want to interrupt you, but I do have some questions for you guys. So if I can give you guys some prompts.
Yes.
Okay. So here are my prompts for you guys. And if you have a pen and paper or something to like, even a catalog in your mind, and for the viewers out there, if you want to participate, I would like for you to kind of think of these questions when it comes to this video. So, like Samuel was saying, number one, can we identify the people in the story? So the people in the story are the little girl with the red shoes, right? Who is the girl with the red shoes? Who is the old woman who adopted her? Who is the man with the red beard? And who is the people of the church who shunned her? And who is the executioner? So that's kind of like question one. Okay, who are the people? Question two is, do you sympathize with the girl with the red shoes? Or do you not sympathize with her? And question three is, what do you feel like the moral of the story is?
Do you want us to answer these like 1, 2, 3 all at one time, or do you want to do like 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3?
Let's do one across the board, and then we'll do two. So Samuel, we'll start with you, then do Crafton, then we'll do Jen. And let's start first with, who do you think these people were in the story?
Okay. So I think this, like I said before you had asked the questions, I think it's a story of initiation, specifically for people who are interested in witchcraft. So I think the girl in the red shoes is a general person that you can identify with as a newcomer to the craft. Old woman, I was like old crone woman, goddess archetype. You know, that's what I was thinking of with her. But I really identify with the crone imagery and history and iconography. So I'm sticking with that. The man with the red beard, like I said, I think it's I believe it to be the devil. Can be the Christian devil or the witch's devil, which is the great initiator. Church people, obviously societal people. You could even say Christian people if you want to, but I think it's just they're supposed to just represent typical society members that aren't outside the norm. And then the executioner, I think it's supposed to be maybe death, like a personified death character, you know. But I also think you forgot to mention one character was the spirit of the church, and I wanted to I think that was an angel. I want to say that was an angel, specifically because there's a lot of lore. Oh, I'm going really far into this. There's lore about people going around the church backwards and stuff like that, like 3 times to summon the devil kind of stuff. And so I think when she went to the church to ask for like repentance, like to repent, the church spirit was like, nope, too bad. You kind of already done your deed. But okay. My stove flop.
You are so right. I forgot that. I'm so sorry.
Oh, girl, you're fine. I was thinking about that character too. I was like, that spirit meant something.
Hey, Crafton.
Mhm.
Can I go next? Because I'm not
Absolutely.
going to remember the story because I have a fucking goldfish brain.
Same, babe. Same.
Oh, well, then you can go.
No, go.
Please,
No, you go
no.
ahead. You go
Okay, so
ahead.
first
I
start.
don't know if I
I
can
want
even
you
fill
guys.
these blanks.
I want you guys to first start with
You want me to go?
identifying the people in the story. Who did you think was the people in the story? Identify them.
Okay, so did Samuel fulfill that enough? Did he answer your questions?
No,
Is that
I
my-
want all of you to. I want all of you to.
I think you did it, didn't you? You said who you thought each person
Yes.
was, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
you're
for me in the story, obviously red resonates with me. And I see that as a vibration of blood, as a vibration of life force, power, not just feminine, but sometimes feminine. And I saw the little girl in the story taking her power and getting it taken away from her and overcoming that and getting blessings. And I saw a very large Lilith vibe in there, but that's perhaps because that's what's always on my mind. So the other people in the story, my mind kind of starts to trail off. The executioner, I guess, would in today's society be like maybe the government or the people that are kind of like telling us what we can and can't do, whether that be our family or whatever method that's kind of controlling us. And then, yeah, the red shoes, like, they're powerful, man. They're my most powerful weapon.
I
love.
love those.
These shoes are my fucking power. So when you started to read this story, I didn't really understand, but yeah, so Crafton.
I don't even know. Y'all have like all these beautiful metaphors and ways of breaking this down. Um, I felt like the executioner was death to me, like imminent death, and also like a blut, which would be like a sacrifice of the blood, like sacrificing or giving up something or offering up something to get something in return, even if it means that it will kill you or like pretty much leave you decrepit, like just overall you're suffering from something, so you're going to have to give something up, which is usually the trade with death. I did kind of get kind of like a hermit vibe in it too, but I mean, it could just be that, and it could just be Odin and like even the hanged one, the hanged man in general. Definitely sacrificing yourself in order to get something. Um, I felt like the girl was kind of like, how can I say? I feel like she was like a neophyte, definitely like a beginner, and then the red shoes were kind of like her temptation, like the devil card in tarot. And this was like something she couldn't break away from because it allowed her to be free, even though she was poor, motherless, and abandoned, basically an orphan. She is basically like wanting these red shoes because of the feeling it gave her before the crone took her in. And even though the crone gave her home, home doesn't feel like something home isn't like what people give you. Home is like where you feel the most comfortable, and those shoes are what made her comfortable.
Yeah.
So I feel like her, like, almost worshiping them was like her way of being like, but I would love, there's parts of me that would want to go back to that life as opposed to staying in this new life.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like the church members were definitely, I agree with Samuel, that I feel like it was definitely society. I do like the idea of government that Jen was saying, because these are, it's kind of like I'm very much referencing like tarot at this point. So we're just in Rider-Waite-Smith right now in my explanation. But I was literally thinking of like the Six of Pentacles card in Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, and of the tax man holding like the Libra scales, essentially like balance, like paying your dues, but also being able to take from other people or give to other people. Like either you're taking that money and giving it to yourself or vice versa. So I feel like that was kind of the society's like view of it. Like, how dare you wear this thing, these shoes that are so arbitrary, obscene, probably especially based around the time of this book being written. I definitely think it was like dancing with the devil, because that was her dancing with her temptation and what she was truly comfortable with. I feel like the invocation was really big, and the spirit, I agree with Samuel too, of that being like some form of like an angel or sentient being. And yeah, I don't know how much further I can go.
I wanted to respond to what Jen said about I can't remember what you said about the old woman, but oh no, you were talking about Lilith, and I was like, yes, Lilith. But since I work with the Morgan and you have the red hair, red vibes, I was like, okay, now you said that, I was like, I can relate to the Morgan now. So the church people I see as like Kraft and Sydney, you agreed that it's like typical societal members, but the old woman who I was like archetypal crone goddess, the Morgan is seen in lore shapeshifted into an old woman, old women specifically. And I think it's interesting that the old woman was like, you can't wear these shoes, and she wore them anyway. You can't wear these shoes, and yet she wore them anyway. So I really think it was kind of like a test to see that the girl with the red shoes, like test her mettle, to see like, I want to tell you no, but I want to see if you actually do it. I want to tell you no, but I just want to test to see if you can actually do it, if you're strong enough to actually go through with the process. So I don't see this as like a metaphorical story. I could see this really truly being like a story about some young girl coming in contact with otherworldly beings. I mean, especially like there wasn't anything, I guess, outwardly mystical about this other than her shoes dancing by them, forcing her to dance, But in the end, when her head was chopped off and she was still dancing, that is what kind of solidified to me it was like an extremely otherworldly experience, because that couldn't happen without supernatural interaction,
I feel at that moment it's like no one can take away your spirit. They can chop your head off, they can kill your everything, but no one can keep you from fucking dancing.
Period.
Fuck. Beautiful.
Yeah, I think I think it's kind of interesting that you mentioned like, and we're totally not, we're just chatting now, Jasmine, about it. I'm sorry. Question number 2.
Where is Jazz?
Oh, she's probably responding to the comments. She's probably busy talking to the people. There she is.
The kids together.
I'm here.
Pretty face.
I was responding to the comments. Okay, I want to thank everyone for chiming in down in the comments below. We had some really good comments. Some of the folks down below were saying how the man with the red beard, as Samuel was saying, is very much like the devil archetype. So I heard some of that down in the comments. If I can chime in and interrupt really quick. Yeah. I just want to give my input. So to me, now I've read this. Now this book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, is so fundamental to me because my grandmother and I showed a photo. This is off air. Okay, this is the crew, Kiki. But I showed a photo of my grandmother when she was around my age. And she was in a book club. And this was the book that started her book club. Now, they called it a book club. Okay. But they still meet to this day around the full moon.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Women of their time. But I love this book so much, especially because, like, my grandmother's notes are in this book. So to me, the woman with the red shoes represents, I think that's kind of all of us to an extent. I think we all can identify with the red shoes. And listening to what you all have said has been very enlightening to me. You know, I think that the executioner, I can see how that is the government. I can see that. And thinking about the spirit at the church, you know, in the book, they call it, what do they call it? A spirit at the church, I think they called it in the book. You know, is it an angel? I don't necessarily agree with that personally, but that's the great thing about these folk tales, is that we can all get different.
Yes.
We can all get something different out of it.
Mhm.
I don't think it was an angel. I think the spirit of the graveyard was a spirit of the land that was there before the church was there. And I think the spirit of earth, the spirit of the soil, the red soil, essentially, cursed her to, what do they say? And let me get back to the page, you guys.
With the highlighter.
Being, he mentioned
So
that
when
there's a
when
race.
you're done, I have a new idea because I forgot to say it. But after you guys are done, I have a new thing I forgot.
So the spirit, let me see. Over the hills and through the woods to grandmother's house we go. I thought of that when reading the story as well. Okay. So the spirit said, "You shall not enter. You shall dance in your red shoes until you become like a wraith, like a banshee." To me, that stuck out. When I think of a banshee, like, we think of, like, sorry, the dogs are barking, but Hecate, but okay. When we think of the banshee, we think of like a spirit who sings to mark the death of something.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, when I saw "you shall dance in your red shoes until you become like a wraith, like a banshee," I interpreted this as, in your death, almost like you will be blessed in your death, you will live evermore like a banshee, to sing the sound of mourning. She said, the spirit said at the church, "You will be a ghost until your skin hangs from your bones." So until your physical vessel rots, your spirit will haunt this land that you die on, is what I got from that. You shall dance door to door and through all of the villages. You shall strike each door 3 times. And when the people peer out, they will see you and they will fear you for fate for themselves. Dancing red shoes, so you shall dance. I saw this as this mortal girl essentially became a figure of folklore.
Mm-hmm.
And she was once mortal, but like Samuel was saying, she took upon her this initiation and she danced herself into the grave and became a spirit of the land. That's just what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
But we can all see, that's the great thing about folktales, is that we can all have different perspectives.
Yeah.
The man with the red beard, I wasn't really sure about, but after listening to what some of you guys said and some of what Samuel said and the comments said, like, I definitely can see how this is a devil, because he recognized the girl as sinful, we'll put in quotes. He knew that she was different than the church. He knew that she was different than the rest of the folks. But he never outed her. And she knew and he knew, and they had this divine knowing between them. So now the executioner, like, I agree. I think that's very much like the government. So yeah. So the second question, let's get into that.
Sympathize with the girl in the red shoes. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes and no. Going along with what I believe the story to be about, that story of initiation. Yes, I have sympathy with her because that's being a witch is not easy peasy. The path isn't easy, and I think this is kind of one of those like forewarning stories, in my opinion, about people kind of taking on the role of a witch, the contracts with the other world that being a witch like entails, dealings with the spirit world, kind of things like that. Because in the end, like when I read that, her being like, I would rather die, it was like her trying to renounce what she already kind of took upon herself, you know? So, so yes, I sympathize, because once you get like entrenched in the practice itself, you really can't get out of it, just because you see and interact with the world on a completely more heightened level. You know, I don't see a tree just like a tree with bark, you know, with leaves. I see an entity, a spirit, you know, there is something there. So I think that it's kind of one of those storylines where it's like you can't wash away the practice, the craft, your ties with the spirit world. You can't do it, because even after death, her legs kept dancing, her shoes kept her dancing, you know. So it was kind of that you kind of gave your life to this, and now you're trying to take it back. And I think that you probably can take it back. Obviously, like, you have your own right choice, you know. But in this instance, I think she kind of made a pact with the devil, like the pact with the devil kind of dealio, you know. And so, like, I mean, if you think about it, talking about like Sabrina, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, you signed your name in the book, you did it, you know. If the devil was like, girl, I want you to do something, you got to kind of do it, you know. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it, you know. So I sympathize with her in the instance of, if you make contracts with otherworldly beings, you kind of got to stick to them, and you're going to be held to your word in that manner. But I don't sympathize with her because I mean, I just think that, like, if you're not gonna hold up your ends of the bargain, and you're not gonna keep your word, especially with otherworldly beings that don't have human concepts of right and wrong, you're kind of out of luck. You know, that's just kind of how it is. So, yeah, I have sympathy. No, I don't have sympathy.
Bless.
And I think it's also, you're supposed to be scared, you know. It's kind of, this is supposed to be scary. This is not supposed to be love and light, you know. I mean, it can be.
It's definitely not love and light.
You know, I mean, like, it can be if you want it to be, but like but it's just not. It's not how it is. So I think this is a good forewarning story. But Jen, what do you think?
You said it really well, I think.
I think. Thank you.
I have far too many opinions, so I try to keep them inside until the good ones come out.
Oh, girl, I have a lot of shit to say constantly about everything.
When I'm chewing gum, but there's nothing in my mouth, that's when I have opinions. I'm like, no, I got something that's fucking. Yeah.
Do you have anything to add, Sydney?
Um, I don't know to add. I do agree that like I kind of sympathized with her in the beginning, but then I was just kind of like, girl, you keep looking at these shoes. Girl, you still want to keep. Oh, now you gonna get dancing with them. Oh, now we're loud and proud in the church. Okay,
Yeah.
doing the work of the tap dancing and such. I'm like, oh, okay. No, I mean, I felt kind of bad when like the devil was like talking to her and she was like, well, hell shit, let me get into it then. Let me tap dance all through the night.
Mhm.
And the devil's like, okay, girl, do what you gotta do.
Do it.
You do you, girl.
Mm-hmm.
But towards the end I was kind of like, well, you got these spirits of the land talking to you, you keep you keep doing it, and now you're literally doing it while the woman who took you in died. So I feel like at that point, the moment you saw these shoes, you know what I mean, or whatever your vice is, I feel like is what the metaphor is. That's what I'm getting from it. Whatever your vice is, it's literally to the point where you're blind to the world around you. So you do just kind of keep tap dancing. I feel like that's like with any bad habit, or, maybe not reinforcing your boundaries with yourself and being like, hey, this shit's kind of toxic. The devil's only doing what you want to do. He's not telling you much. Just kind of like, hey, just a little sprinkle here and there, and you can get on moving.
You got free will.
Exactly. Like you will always have free will, and I feel like that's 100%. Like it definitely feels like a neophyte taking a wrong turn, or like a spell gone wrong, which does happen. We do hear about it. In the mundane world all the time, or people try to put these very, taboo storylines essentially to make it seem like they're going the wrong path. Especially turning into a banshee. I was like, oh, good Morgan. Okay, see you. See you.
Little vibe energy, and you can connect that. I mean, with the old lady too. The vibe. The vibe is a shapeshifter again. Old one.
Okay. We got all these different ways, okay?
Yeah.
We're always not seeing one way. And two, I mean, there's really not a lot of indication that shapeshifter couldn't shapeshift into that spirit of the land, or maybe that spirit of the land was the guy with the red beard, or the crone too. You never know. Those could also be minions.
I actually thought that the shoemaker was kind of a personification of the man with the red beard too, kind of. I mean, the only reason I can think of that was because he winked at her, like he, like you're getting away with something that you shouldn't be getting away with, which is the devil's kind of thing, like it's like self-indulgent, like you want it and you're gonna get it because you're tricking this old lady into getting it for you, kind of dealio. So I thought the shoemaker, I was like, devil character, that is the devil character, but even then you could think about, I mean, I think someone commented a while ago about how stories tend to be Christianized, with the red beard, obviously, like in my opinion, the devil, the Christian devil, when in all reality it could have been some like otherworldly being, insert name here,
someone from the Isles, maybe.
I was actually thinking about it being another crowd, a member of the other crowd. I don't like to say the F word. But yeah, so if I hope you guys know what I'm talking about, but it could be like you just want to be careful with your dealings with people that aren't of the norm,
right?
Because I mean, like there are like hella stories from Ireland about people just doing things that they just were random, like cutting a bush. Turns out it's a bush of this particular group of beings that originate from all over the place. That person who cut down that bush got a splinter. It infected their hand. Their whole arm had to be cut off. So I think it could also act as a warning to be like, keep your eyes peeled for anything kind of shifty, shady,
Mhm.
because you may be entering into something you just have no idea about, and you got to just be careful.
I think it's talking about too, kind of like you kind of know what you signed up for, and that is essentially like how you were talking about earlier, like you can't be blind to what the tree does now, because you know how it moves, shifts, and changes. You know its energy, you know its vibe. You can literally, have that belief of like animism now. So
Yes.
now you can't turn your third eye off to not see it. And I feel like with this temptation, it was kind of like honestly like sealed in blood, in my opinion, because as soon as you took she took the shoes down, essentially, like the crone was dying. You know what I mean? So it's kind of gotten to the point where like you literally believe in this vice, this um, belief so much that it does take over your life, and then you kind of get swept, you know what I mean? Or kind of like lost in the chaos of it to where you can't see left or right. You can't like find the direction you need to take because now you're like caught up in it. You've basically written a contract in blood is kind of how I see it, because we've lost a life, so something was taken. And then you have to go to the executioner to be like, "Hey, can you just cut these off?" But then you get your feet cut off in your head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like here you are, even in the astral, still obsessing, and now kind of like the spirit of the land obsessed with these shoes.
I think it's interesting to bring up obsession, because to me it's not. I don't feel like it's necessarily an obsession. To me, it's a contractual obligation. Like
That part.
like it could have been an obsession after like a while, but we could also say that like the red shoes represent power,
Mhm.
force, and she was obsessed with needing the power with power, but it's not necessarily an obsession, because if you think about it, like time period wise, women didn't have any power, especially young girls. They had zero power.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
like you're obsessed with something, you covet this power, and then you want to give it away, like after you
Mhm.
receive it, after you get it, after you have these secrets, knowledge, whatever it could metaphorically be,
Mhm.
So I think that it was kind of like a contractual obligation. I mean, even the spirit of the church, whatever,
Mhm.
was like, you will do this until your skin rots off your face, until you're dead, and you will go to their doors and knock 3 times, So he even warned her, you will do this in your death, So
Yes.
he told her, he was like,
That's true.
what will happen to you, So I think that her trying to like cut her feet off, cut her head off, or whatever, was for her to like breach contract, kind of,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
she was going to do it in her death, whether or not she died now or 150 years in the future, so, or however long she lived. So that's my 2 cents on that. But Jasmine will probably want us to move on to question 3. Welcome back.
I've been here the whole time. I absolutely love what you guys are saying here. And I love this discussion because it really shows how folktales can represent different meanings between people. So we all get something different from this story, right? I mean, I think that we all
Mhm.
got something very different from this story.
Very much so.
Absolutely.
So, what was our third question?
What's the moral?
What is the moral of the story? Can we get into that?
I feel like I kind of mentioned what I thought my moral was previously, like through the rest of my comments, following along the trend of don't do dealings with otherworldly beings unless you are skilled enough to understand a good contract and how to get yourself out of a good contract. Don't go. I guess don't walk yourself into a bad situation because oftentimes I feel like practitioners, especially new practitioners, don't know the lingo, don't know the ins and outs of different entities. So it's kind of easy to kind of get yourself into a trap because you're just unaware of the specifics of things. So just be easy peasy. Don't say shit out loud that you are not going to follow up on, even if it is something super simple, because you never know who could be listening and who could be like, that, I want that. And then they're going to snatch it from you, because we also have to remember entities, other beings don't have a human understanding of right, wrong, good, or bad. They just are going to do whatever they want to do, so we got to be cautious and careful, but also be willing to take risks. And you have the opportunity to grab power, grab it, because underprivileged people that are outcasted, don't have a lot of societal power. So we got to take it from somewhere. We have to get it from something. So if we're gonna mess with some otherworldly powers, you gotta womb up and deal with it. Ovary up and go with the flow, because you're in for a ride. But that's what I think about the moral was.
Go ahead, Jen.
You're muted, honey.
Oh, that's fantastic. So the whole time I've been sitting here not talking. So I think that perhaps the moral of the story, I took it a completely different way. I saw it as like a Lilith Eve situation.
Cool.
Oh, girl.
So I think the moral of the story is that, like, no matter if anybody takes off your red shoes, you can still keep dancing in spirit. No matter who cuts off your head, like, you're fucking still dancing. Your vibration is still there. What you leave on this earth is there for always. And do what you can while you're here. Embrace yourself as your own goddess or your own god or your own, like, power. And
Period.
that's all you've got.
Yes.
That's all you need.
I love that.
Bless.
I feel like the moral of the story, like my interpretation of it, is that don't write a check you can't cash in the physical, the digital, or the astral,
Period.
especially in blood.
Uh,
Beware. If you do not have the foresight to see what is to come, maybe ask for help. If things get a little shaky, if the devil card upright is taking a toll, maybe hit up a reader. Whoever you feel, is, for one, can tell the tale of what's going wrong and how we can fix that. If you cannot fix it yourself, baby, we don't always have to go to executioners. Maybe there was another way. I don't know. Okay. And always be aware of the type of energy, presences, or spirits that are around you. Because 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to leverage something to get something.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So my next and final question before we end this sacred blasphemy is, do you all feel like the woman with the red shoes was a witch?
Yes.
And if yes, and if no, why?
Yes. I already have my answer. I'm not a big thinker about it.
Can I just go first? Because otherwise I'll forget the question.
Yes.
Yes. And mine will be short, don't worry.
Take over.
So I feel like, Jasmine, just say it one more time. Just refresh my head.
Do you think the woman or the girl with the red shoes was a witch? And if yes or no, why do you think that?
Yeah, I think that she didn't know she was a witch at the start. She was just a girl.
Mm-hmm.
She found her power within some kind of color, some kind of vibrance, some kind of attachment to something, and then grew from that. And then I think that she just kind of came into herself. I think she came into herself as being power, which in that we can all be witches, male, female, etc. We can all be different things. But yes, I think that she was a witch. But at the beginning of the story, no, she wasn't. At the end of the story, I think that she was high in her power, and even though that her feet were cut off and they kept dancing, is like the story of what we will all do after we go.
Yeah.
We keep dancing. So there we are. Bless.
Bless. You go next, Cindy.
I think this is just like the question we had the other day. You know, are witches born or are they made? And I believe she made herself and did her work, speaking to the right spirit entity, the devil or such, you know, to have this manifest because she did grow into those shoes. She did transform. She did shape shift a little bit. Okay. She just didn't know how far it was going to go. She didn't read her contract. Okay. So, yes. I don't think she started off. I think she was regular degular. And as time went on, the obsession grew and the time went on and the contract was made and she wrote in the book of the beast and she was ready to go.
Ready to go. I think she's very much a witch. I think that I don't necessarily want to say that she was like born a witch versus made a witch, because she did craft her own red shoes, even if they were rudimentary. So like I guess you could probably equate that to her like being like pre-taught or pre-given the secrets, the knowledge, whatever it is from the initiatory spirit. The language they used was very unique. She danced across the hedge. If you know anything about like hedge crossing, that's a very traditional witchcraft technique to fly to the Sabbath, to cross the hedge. Around that time, it was very sexual too. With the man with the red, and that's a very typical thing of hedge crossing rituals, is like sexual intercourse to shoot your spirit from your body, whether it is like solo or with partners, you know. So I think that was also like when she started to pick up more and more, because she was visiting the other world. She was no longer like doing her own little stuff here. She was going to learn and coming back with all this information, all this knowledge. I also think that it does kind of, I mean, like exactly what Jen said. I think that once you kind of go through this transformation of being a witch, of learning the occult, of becoming more friendly with the other world, the spirit world, it's like now, I mean, I totally believe that it changes your DNA to like an intrinsic level, you know. It will not, it cannot leave your soul anymore, which is why I think that the spirit of the church was kind of like you're stained, you know, because like once you get it, you can't give it away, you know. It's there, it's a part of your being, it's cellular. So I think that also, like going back with what Jen said, was the fact that like she was dancing even after she was dead. So to me, that's like you are a witch through every lifetime, you know, whether you are learning again, rediscovering, relearning, or whatever, you know. It's now a part of who you are. So there is no separating from it in that sense, even in the spiritual world, you know. I mean, there are many stories about folkloric people dying and then going to be servants of gods, goddesses, whoever in the other world, you know. So it's no longer, we can't just be separated from it. So I think she was totally a witch. You know, you're born. I mean, this is my favorite quote from the originals. Like, obsessed. This witch was got bit by a vampire, and she decided that she wasn't going to turn into a vampire all the way, like transition all the way, because she said, "I was born a witch. I will die a witch."
Okay.
And I stand by that wholeheartedly, 100% of the way. 100%.
Thanks for that.
That's my 2 cents.
Powerful story.
Well,
Yes, I loved it.
Me too.
well, I think looking at our time here, we have been going for about 70 minutes, right? So I think it's good. This is a good place to end for tonight. However, next month, for all of you, my guests, Crafton, Samuel, Jen, next month around the 20th, if we could plan for another Sacred Blasphemy and read from more of this book. I hope that all of you have enjoyed, of course, these folk tales. I've really, really enjoyed hearing all of your interpretations and all of the interpretations from the chat. So if we could continue this as like a fun witchy quarantine kiki on air, I think that would be super fun. I do have my next story picked out, which we can talk about off air. So once I hit like the end button on the live, we're all still going to be here.
Cool.
So you don't have to leave. I'll hit the end button, but we'll all still be on chat.
Bye, Sarah, Uncle Badger. Nice to see you.
Do we have any final like words about the story or just anything that you want to say to the viewers before we end the chat?
Don't come to the craft lightly. As much as I think social media wants to make this about aesthetics, pretty tarot cards and lighting candles, I think it's very prudent to mention that this story, at least from my perspective, is a very deep and sincere warning to people who are interested in occult or mystical practices. You know, it's serious work. I mean, you can make it as lighthearted as you want it to be. You know. But where it gets deep and where you dig deep and where there's serious craft and work to be done, it's scary. It is not for the faint of heart. So please don't take this as a gatekeeper kind of situation. It's very much protect yourself. And if you are willing to give yourself up to a certain degree to the other world, do it, you know, full-heartedly dance until your head is chopped off and you will continue to dance in the other realm. You know, it's serious commitment. It's very serious commitment.
Me next?
Yes.
Yeah, so have no fear going in. If you have fear, it's not really going to help you any. You need to remedy that. Do loads of shadow work. But if this is your path, then follow it. And don't have reservations and just go where you're drawn to go. Do the research, know what you need to do, and honor your promises. I think that's probably my best advice is honor your promises. Anything you say out loud to a spirit, an energy, you need to devote yourself to that.
Yes. Yes.
Like fully. And I just did a beautiful poetry video to Lilith tonight, and it was like it made my year. So just things like that you can do that other people can see. It's really an honor to teach people like how beautiful something like that can be, even though there is fear going in, but have no fear going in. Once you can clear that fear, you're ready. But until then, I would say do your shadow work. Does that make sense to y'all?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so.
My final words are Do your research always. Even if you need to just do a week of study consistently, or do a full moon phase. You know, stay consistent. Pull cards or see your reader if things are going bump in the night and don't make sense. Do your work. Do not sign a contract blindly
Uh,
in the physical, the digital, or the astral. And always take care of yourself, and
Period.
always make sure that if you're leveraging something that you can commit to that.
yes, very much so.
Then it's
So I just
beautiful.
want to thank
Thank
I
you.
just want to thank everyone for joining. Thank you, all of my lovely guests, for joining this sacred blasphemy. And I hope that all of you can come back again for our next sacred blasphemy, which will be a month from now, hopefully around the end of February. We'll talk more after the live. But thank you all again for joining. Thank you, Uncle Badger. Thank you, Ashara Nocturnalas, and many others. I've been trying to stay up to date here on the chat. Dice Controller. Let's see, who else? Yeah, I'm sorry. The chat, it's a lot going on. I've tried to kind of stay up on it, but I've not been the best. So forgive me. Like we might forgive those with the red shoes, of course. So yes, hopefully we can do another chapter of Women Who Run with the Wolves for the next Sacred Blasphemy. That will be next month, February, around the 20th. Okay. And thank you, all of my lovely guests. And we are going to end this now. So until next time, blessed be.